For the sake of pacing, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime oftentimes mentions a duel happened without showing it. By my count, there are at least 50 duels from the original that we know occurred, but we don't get to see. So in this list, I'll go over them in chronological order. Disclaimer, this list is based on the anime continuity, but I will reference the manga whenever needed to assist in some calculations. As for what is not on this list, I will not include unfinished duels such as Kaiba versus Bakura, duels that take place before the events of the series, such as Merrick talking about how Ishizu would defeat him as kids, and duels that were mentioned in passing but have no real bearing on the story, like Joey and Yugi's casual duels, or the Rare Hunters testing fake copies of Ra, and duels where we can't name either participant. If we get to see a brief glimpse of the duel, those are still eligible for this list, and if we only got to see the end of the duel, those will also be included. With all that laid out, let's go down the list. The first unseen duel of the series takes place in the very first scene of the very first episode, that between friends Yugi and Joey. We get to see the last two turns, where Joey summons Kagemusha of the Blue Flame, and Yugi responds by summoning Black Lion Fire Dragon to attack over Kagemusha for the win. Not much to write here since this is one of Joey's first duels ever back when he had an all-monster deck and specifically a largely weak monster deck. The second unseen duel takes place in the first episode as well. This episode is most famous for Yugi throwing down Exodia on Kaiba's 3 Blue Eyes, but the whole reason this duel takes place is because Kaiba has just defeated Yugi's grandpa and won his Blue Eyes. By the time we see Yugi and friends arrive, Kaiba tears up the copy, but while this duel between Kaiba and grandpa is unseen in the NAS version of the anime, we actually do get to see a glimpse of it in the Toei version where Kaiba plays 3 Blue Eyes to grandpa's 1, and in the manga, we get to see the entire duel. So depending on what source you go off of, this is anywhere between fully seen to partially seen to fully unseen. Thing about it is, this duel takes place at a time where Kazuki Takahashi hadn't really fleshed out the game, so there's not much to see here other than summon and attack. It would be cool though to see this duel reimagined with the more modern versions of their strategies at one of those live scripted duels, especially since Blue Eyes and Phantom Exodia have received new support very recently. The next unseen duel comes in the second episode, that between Taya and Joey. This is similar to the first entry as a casual duel at Domino High, where we only get to see the final turn of each duelist, with Joey summoning Rock Ogre Grotto number 1, and Taya activating Breath of Light for the win. To the point made earlier, without a fleshed out rule set, it's hard to understand why Taya playing that card won her the game, but overall we probably aren't missing out on too much by the writers not showing most of this duel. In fact, Taya is stated to have defeated Joey multiple times, with the dub specifying 5. There's a bit of a time skip in this episode during which Joey goes through his training with Grandpa and even enters a regional tournament in which he makes the quarterfinals. Unclear how many participants there were or how many duels Joey was in, but worth mentioning nonetheless as a collection of unseen duels that essentially prepped Joey for the big leagues. What's interesting though is that we do eventually get a glimpse of the quarterfinals round Joey lost all the way during the Battle City semis, because while Yugi and Kaiba are dueling, Joey, who is still knocked out, is dreaming of the duel he had in this tournament, hence why it's using the Duelist Kingdom rule set. Funnily enough, we actually do get to see this duel in its entirety. Staying in episode 2, we get our next unseen duel, the Japan National Championship between Weevil and Rex. This was on the edge of counting as seen or unseen, as both duels are shown with at least 2 turns each. Rex summons Two-Headed King Rex, Weevil summons Basic Insect, Rex tries to stomp it but is stopped by Vortex Whirlwind, then Weevil equips the Laser Armor thing to Basic Insect and attacks over Two-Headed King Rex for the win. Rex does mention just prior to summoning his ace that our battle has been evenly matched so far, but I'll finish you with this, thus implying that there was a chunk of this duel left unseen. I'll add a footnote here with Mako versus either Rex or Weevil. Mako is said to have come in 3rd place at this same tournament, so the insinuation is that he lost to either Rex or Weevil. Would have been interesting to see the fish duel square off against either the dinos or insects. Our next unseen duel is another Rex duel, this one against Mai on the ship to Duelist Kingdom. Mai finds herself without a room on board and not wanting to stay in the common area with a bunch of dudes. She coerces Rex into a duel by wagering that if she wins, she gets the room, but if she loses, she'll do whatever Rex wants. Rex, being the primitive guy he is, drools at the opportunity, but quickly finds himself in a tough spot when Mai reveals her alleged psychic powers to know what card she has without looking at them. The scene then cuts to Weevil throwing Exodia off the ship, and by the time we get back to Rex, he is being thrown out of his room, thus suggesting that he lost this unseen duel to Mai. Alright, we finally arrived on the island, and of course, being a tournament, there's going to be a bunch of unseen duels taking place. I'm only going to go over the ones where we know of at least one of the participants. The first of these is Mai taking down an unnamed extra. Yugi and company come across her winning 2 starships from this kid as he complains that she somehow cheated back when she was using her aromatic scheme. The next one that is mentioned is between Mako and an unnamed duelist, which is why by the time Yugi duels him, Mako has 4 starships. That said, Yugi only has 3, so when they duel, they both wager 3, meaning that after Mako loses, he still has 1 left, saying so himself that he has to start back over. This could mean that he went on to win and or lose more duels, though it's not definitive either way. A few episodes later, we come back to Mai, who is shown defeating another unnamed duelist with Harpy Lady Sisters. Shortly after, Rex challenges her to a duel, and while they don't end up dueling, they both do show their star chips. Mai has 8, and Rex has 5. This suggests that Mai won yet another unseen duel for a total of 3, and Rex likely won 2 unseen duels himself. Mai wagers to Rex that she'll only duel him if he defeats Joey, so Joey and Rex duel, each wagering 2 star chips. This would bring Rex down to 3 after his loss, so like Mako, it's entirely possible that he went on to win and or lose more duels, but again, not definitive either way. The next unseen duel is the only one of Duelist Kingdom that is unseen, where we know for sure the names of both participants. That is between Mai and Panic. By the time Yugi and friends arrive, Mai has already been defeated, and Panic has taken all of her star chips, thus eliminating her, which is why Yugi duels Panic to win those chips back for her. We didn't get to see any of this duel, other than the end where Panic destroyed Harpy Lady Sisters with an unknown monster shrouded in darkness, but Mai does mention to Yugi's friends that she succumbed to Panic's scare and darkness tactics. Ironic considering that Mai herself was employing mind games with her aromatics. Shortly after this, when the gang comes across Kaiba, he mentions a duel between Pegasus and Bandit Keith, for which we only get to see the final 2 turns when Pegasus calls over a kid to defeat Bandit Keith. While I'm not counting this in my total since it takes place before the events of the series, I figured it was at least worth an honorable mention. As for the remaining duels on the island, where we know of at least one participant, Pegasus employs eliminators to weed out the duels before they can get to his castle. Panic is one of those eliminators, and the only other ones we know of are the Paradox Brothers and Ghost Kaiba, or the ventriloquist in the manga. It's likely that one, if not all of these guys were involved in other duels, perhaps knocking out the likes of Mako and Rex, as well as several of the other unnamed participants. As for the tournament participants, one duelist we can point to is Bones, who by the time Joey duels already has 4 star chips. Since duels enter with 2, it's likely that he defeated 1 or 2 duels to get to 4. It's possible to argue that they bullied star chips out of people the way they took people's locator cards in Battle City, but given how they properly dueled Joey, I'm inclined to think whatever extra star chips they had were won in duels. Bones' 2 friends also have 10 star chips between them. We know this because Bandit Keith himself didn't have any, and after taking theirs, has enough to get into the castle. That means that Sid and Zygor likely won 2 duels each, again, assuming they didn't scare them off people. And then we come back to Mai, who last we saw had 8 star chips, lost them all to Panic, then got them all back when Yugi defeated him and returned those chips to her. By the time she gets to the castle, she has 16. She gives the 6 extra to Yugi as payback for helping her against Panic. This would mean that she had at least 1 unseen duel on the second day of Duelist Kingdom, wagering all 8 to win another 8. Though, I'm inclined to believe that her opponents wouldn't be wagering more than they needed, so she would have had to have been involved in at least 2 unseen duels on day 2, giving her a minimum total of 6 unseen duels during Duelist Kingdom, with a record of 5-1 in those duels. And that does it for Duelist Kingdom. Now we're off to Battle City, but before we start counting, let's go over one key difference between the 2 tournaments. While both require a duelist attaining a certain number of a qualification, star chips and locator cards, Duelist Kingdom has an extra amount of star chips, whereas Battle City only has enough locator cards for the 8 finalists to make it. Here's the evidence and math for that. Yugi mentions that there are 40 participants in Duelist Kingdom. I'll take this to count Joey, but remember that he and Yugi each only have 1 star chip, while the remaining 38 have 2, and this 38 excludes Bandit Keith and Seto Kaiba, who were not officially registered. To reiterate, Bandit Keith gets all 10 of his from Sid and Zygor, while Kaiba gets his initial 5 from Pegasus, who got those 5 from Mokuba, who stole those from other participants in the tournament. This means that there were a total of 78 star chips. We know that the 5 who entered the castle each had 10, with Mai actually having 11, meaning they had 51 between them. That leaves an extra 27 star chips out there. That means that the eliminators had to have picked up at least 18 more star chips to prevent another duelist from getting the requisite 10 to get inside the castle. That's why earlier I said it's not clear whether guys like Mako and Rex actually went on to lose another duel. It's entirely possible that they kept winning, but just couldn't collect 10. Battle City is another story. In the manga, Kaiba specifies that there are exactly 48 locator cards, and since you need 6 to qualify for the playoffs and 8 duels qualify, that means that the finalists have all the locator cards. Since each duel starts with 1, this means that there were 48 duels in the tournament, and with no extras remaining, 40 of them would have had to have lost all their locator cards before the finals. And yes, I can hear some of you are probably wondering, yo, CCG, why are you rambling on about this? The reason is because this math will inform some unseen duels that we can back into, even if they weren't mentioned. So now Battle City starts, and we have an unseen duel almost right off the bat, with Joey coming across the tail end of Rex's loss to Esparoba. The writers really hated Rex to just throw him loss after loss and unseen duel after unseen duel. In this last turn, Espa weakens Rex's Serpent Knight with Mesrek controlled and destroys it with Jinzo, winning the duel and claiming the Serpent Knight as ante. The next unseen duel in Battle City is between Koji and the kid he is bullying into giving him more than one ante. Immediately following this is yet another unseen duel, that between Koji and Kaiba, which kind of extends on the meme of Kaiba summoning whatever he wants to on the first turn, because the only glimpse we get of this duel is Obelisk appearing and knocking Koji out. And that actually does it for Battle City unseen duels where we know both duels involved. Now let's look at the ones where we know of at least one participant, and this again is where that prior math is going to come into play. Let's start with Odeon. Odeon doesn't just qualify himself for the finals, but Merrick too. Since the Rare Hunters infiltrated the organization of Battle City, it's likely that Odeon and Merrick each started with one locator card to go along with their duel disc, meaning Odeon won 10 more locator cards. This means he won between 5 to 10 duels, conservatively getting either one locator card per duel, or more liberally getting one from his first win, and then 2 to 3 per duel thereafter, since it's unlikely a duelist would wager 4 or more when they only need 6. And yes, I completely reject the proposition that Odeon snaked those locator cards because the dude is as honorable as they come. Mai won her 5 locator cards off screen, which would suggest 3 to 5 unseen duel wins for her. 3 I feel like is the minimum, where you get 1 from your first duel, then 2 in your next 2 like Joey, whereas 5 would involve winning 1 locator card per duel like Yugi. Mai's one on-screen win comes against Jean-Claude just before the finals, and Jean-Claude shows that he has 5 locator cards himself. Mai doesn't take any upon defeating him since she already has the 6 she needs, and since this is a filler duel, it's not worth spending too much time on. But if we wanted to surmise who took the rest of Jean-Claude's 5 locator cards in the anime continuity, it would have to be Ishizu, because all the other finalists have their 6 at this point. Would also explain why she's the last one to show up. In the manga continuity, Ishizu would have likely won 3 to 5 duels a la Mai to secure her spot. For Kaiba, it's possible he has 1 to 2 more unseen duels beyond the one with Koji. Since Kaiba gets his 5th and 6th locator cards in his tag duels with Yugi, that means that he had 4 prior. This means that if he got 2 from Koji, he had 1 more unseen win, and if he got 1 from Koji, he had 2 more unseen wins. To that end, if he only took 1 from Koji, then Koji would have had to have lost his other locator card or cards to someone else in an unseen duel. And there are 3 more duels we can point to as having partaken in unseen duels, coincidentally all of Joey's opponents. Weevil has 2 locator cards when he duels Joey, thus implying that he won 1 before that point. And Mako has 4 when he duels Joey, thus implying that he won 1 to 3 duels before losing 2 of his cards to Joey. And that's the key thing about Mako, because he's not fully eliminated after losing to Joey. That would suggest that Mako may have lost his 2 remaining locator cards to either 1 to 2 of Mai, Ishizu, and or Odeon. Or perhaps he lost to someone else who then lost to one of those 3. I exclude Kaiba here because by the time Mako loses to Joey, Kaiba already has 5 locator cards, and we know he gets his 6 from Loomis and Umbra. These calculations also apply to Esperoba, who gives up 1 locator card to Joey, meaning he still has 1 left. This suggests he lost to one of Kaiba, Mai, Ishizu, Odeon, or even Mako, though similar to Mako, it's also possible Espa lost to an unnamed duelist, who then lost to one of those 5. None of the Battle City playoff duels as well as any of the virtual world duels are unseen, but there is the poster child of unseen duels that takes place at the end of the arc, and that is between Joey and the Pharaoh, who meet as true duelists for their Battle City finale after the latter has claimed the official title. You can check out my analysis of that unseen duel with this card in the corner, and it likely tops the list of unseen duel most people would have wanted to have seen. Going in chronological order, we're going to jump over to Pyramid of Light now, which takes place after the events of Battle City. The movies are notorious for giving too much love to Kaiba Yugi duels and leaving little time for anything else, specifically duels with Joey. But while Dark Side of Dimensions completely jilts the underdog, Pyramid of Light sneaks in a couple of abridged duels. The context of these is that everyone is trying to duel Yugi for the Egyptian gods, and Joey takes it upon himself to fend off the crowd, so we get to see him first take on a random man, who summons Injection Fair Lily and somehow attacks with her on the first turn of the duel, meaning Joey is already down to his last 600 life points. The duel is cut off at that point, but we can surmise that Joey won because he's still fighting off the crowd when he duels a kid, his second unseen duel. This one is the opposite, where we only get to see the end of it, with Joey summoning Gil for the Lightning for the win. If you're wondering where Mai was during the events of Pyramid of Light, other than her brief cameo, it's because she was off winning tournaments, that's plural, to try and catch up to Joey and move on from her trauma from the penalty game inflicted by Merrick during Battle City. That's at least what she tells Joey when they face off for the first time during Awakening of the Dragons, saying that despite these wins, she didn't feel any better. Now, after defeating some masked wrestler dude in an unseen cage match duel, we get yet another unseen duel, that between Mai and Valen. Mai loses this one, and thus begins her turn to the Orichalcos after Valen's promise to help her win against anyone. So now we're in Waking the Dragons arc proper, and the first unseen duel, minus flashbacks, is featuring both Rex and Weevil, but this time they're paired together and up against Gurimo, who challenges them on the street after they run into him. Like, literally, run into him. After that is yet another unseen duel featuring Mai, this one against Pegasus. This is actually shown as a flashback right before Mai's duel with Joey, and so we get to see the final turn, at which point Pegasus is down 100 to 4,000 in life points and staring down 6 Harpy ladies and the Seal of Orichalcos. In his favor, however, is Thousand Eyes Restrict, equipped with Harpy's pet dragon. However, Mai draws Phoenix formation to wipe out the monster and the rest of Pegasus' life points, thus capturing his soul. During Valen's backstory, we're shown him defeating prisoners on an island, though this likely takes place before the time period of the anime and thus not in our official counter, but again another honorable mention. And the final unseen duel of the arc is yet another Mai duel, that between her and Raphael. This duel takes place after Mai has forsaken the seal and charges toward darts to try and win back Valen's and Joey's souls, only to be stopped by Raphael and have her own soul captured. I will say that this duel, along with Mai's versus Pegasus and hers versus Valen, are 3 of the unseen duels I'd most like to have seen, though they probably didn't show hers versus Valen because it would have spoiled the reveal of her turn to the dark side, and similarly with her duel with Pegasus, would spoil that Kaiba is not really dueling Pegasus when Alistair is disguised as him. But this one versus Raphael had no such spoiler effect, and I felt like that one, more than any other on this list, the writers could have shown. Now we're on to the KC Grand Prix. Like the other tournament arcs, this one too has a number of unseen duels, but in this case, we know each specific matchup. In the round of 16, there are 8 duels. We see 3 of them, meaning 5 are unseen. The most prominent of these is the one involving Leon in his duel versus Dr. Richard Goat. Others include Ethan Sharp versus Sergei Ivanov, Abe the Monkey Man versus Totani Ialos, Paul McGregor versus Shane Jordan, and Balfrey Ginger versus Jafar Shin. In the quarterfinals, we only see one duel, the one between Joey and Siegfried, leaving the other 3 to be unseen, and that includes Leon versus Ethan Shark, Rebecca versus Abe the Monkey Man, and Balfrey Ginger versus Paul McGregor. And of the 2 semi-final duels, we only get to see Leon versus Rebecca, leaving the matchup of Siegfried versus Balfrey Ginger to be the final unseen duel of the tournament. Though if we want to be as liberal as possible with the definition of unseen, there is one other duel occurring at this time, that between the Pharaoh and Vivian. This is another one where we get to see each duel's final 2 turns, so it kind of just depends on how you define seen versus unseen, but for the sake of consistency, I will define this as an unseen duel. There are actually no unseen duels in the Millennium World arc, and so you might think that's it, but if you watch the end credits of the Japanese anime, we're actually shown a brief glimpse of 3 more duels about to go down. First up is Rex and Weevil, making this the only pairing that shows up twice on the list of unseen duels. Second is a pairing you wouldn't have expected, but I guess for the sake of rounding out every character's story, they threw it in there, and that is between Mako and Esparoba. To my earlier point, it's entirely possible that this is a rematch from an unseen duel they had in Battle City. And finally, on the Great Wall of China is the Paradox Brothers taking on Mai and Vivian Wong, qualifying it as the last unseen duel in the original series. So that does it for the list of unseen duels from Duel Monsters. It's actually quite the list, with 29 duels where we definitively know both opponents, and 20 plus more from tournament arcs where we can surmise at least one of the duels. Comment below which of these you would have most liked to have seen, and for the ones where the winner was unknown, who you think won. And then make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel so none of my content goes unseen.